Lewis Carroll was born Charles Lutwidge Dodgson on January 27, 1832, to Charles Dodgson and Frances Jane Lutwig. He was the oldest boy out of 11 children. Throughout his life, Carroll struggled with a stutter that would have an impact on his social life. Carroll was originally educated in the home and began writing stories and poems from a young age, while at the same time being an advanced reader. His creativity was encouraged by both of his parents, and his father, even though he was only a county parson, aided in sparking his son's interest in mathematics. He began attending school at the age of 12 and continued on to the Constituent College of Christ Church at Oxford University. He obtained a degree in mathematics and would work in some form at Christ Church until his death. On top of being a mathematician and dabbling in some logic, Carroll was also interested in zoology, coming up with inventions, and photography. As he found himself preferring the company of young girls, he was known to have photographed many of them. One young girl in particular was named Alice Liddell, who is believed to have been the main inspiration for what became Alice in Wonderland. The Liddell family came to Christ Church in 1856 as the patriarch of the family was the new dean at Christ Church. Carroll became close friends to the family, regardless of some animosity between Alice's mother and himself, and Carroll would take their children on rowing trips up the River Thames. During these trips on the river, Carroll would tell stories to the children. On July 4, 1862, Carroll, joined by the three Liddell daughters and his friend Robinson Duckworth, told the group a story of a young girl who discovered a whole different world after falling down a rabbit hole. Alice promptly asked him to write the story down for her, which he did, with stories added, and gave her the book at that point titled Alice's Adventures Underground in November of 1864. After sharing the book with his friend, the author George MacDonald, Carroll was encouraged to have the book published, and it was released in 1865 under the name Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The novel included illustrations by the political cartoonist John Tenniel. Even though critics were not fans of the novel, with Tenniel's illustrations being praised more than the writing, the book was a publishing success, selling out quickly, and was read all the way from Queen Victoria down to a young Oscar Wilde. After the release of Alice, Carroll found himself overwhelmed with the fame that was bestowed upon him. He continued writing and teaching mathematics as Dodgson at Christ Church. In 1871, the sequel to Alice was published, titled Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There. This novel was considered darker than the first, something that is attributed to Carroll's bouts of depression from dealing with fame and the death of his father. Carroll continued writing throughout the rest of his life, and two other novels that he is known for include The Hunting of the Snark and Sylvie and Bruno. He never married or had children and passed away on January 14, 1898, of pneumonia. There are numerous themes throughout both of the Alice novels, including justice, logic, mathematics, games, death, nonsense, nature, and time. However, the three most prevailing themes in Alice are that of growing up, identity, and the aspects of dreams and madness. Throughout the first novel, Alice finds herself able to grow and shrink 12 times according to what she eats or drinks, even though she struggles to control how much at a time. This, along with some aspects from the second novel, is thought to be a representation of the inevitable growth from child to adult. In the real world, such growth cannot be stopped, reversed, or curtailed. Alice's growth in the novel at first instills a sense of anxiety within the 7-year-old girl. When she meets the caterpillar, Alice expresses how much she would like to be able to control the growth, as being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing. In the second novel, Alice has a conversation with Humpty Dumpty on growing. "I never ask advice about growing," Alice said indignantly. "Too proud?" the other inquired. Alice felt even more indignant at this suggestion. "I mean," she said, "that one cannot help growing older." The second major theme in the novels is that of identity. During both of her visits to Wonderland, Alice is always being asked who, or what, she is, and is mistaken numerous times for something or somebody else.
Been trying to...
Why, Marianne! What are you doing out here?
Marianne?
Don't just do something.
Then just what are you? I'm just a little girl. Little? Ha! Little? was?
And I suppose you don't eat eggs either.
Yes, I do.
I
But-
knew
but-
it.
but-
I knew it. Serpent. Serpent.
Oh, for goodness sake.
In the second novel, Alice is asked, "Are you animal or vegetable or mineral?" furthering the identity theme. At the beginning of the 19th century, there was only thought to be these three classifications mentioned to Alice, but Darwin's evolutionary theory led there to be a more dynamic process of diversification for classification. With that, it is not just Alice's identity that is unstable and questioned throughout the novels. For example, Alice's Adventures features a baby that is called a pig, and later, when Alice is holding the baby, it actually turns into a pig. The final theme that is dominant in the Alice books pertains to dreaming and madness. While Alice does not realize that she is in a dream until she wakes up at the end, the reader is given subtle hints throughout that she is in fact dreaming. The Looking Glass goes further on the dream idea, with Alice being told by the two boys, Tweedledum and Dee, that she is actually in the Red King's dream. "He's dreaming now," said Tweedledee, "and what do you think he's dreaming about?" Alice said, "Nobody can guess that." "Why about you?" Tweedledee exclaimed, clapping his hands triumphantly. The structure of both of the books highlights dream order. Alice is able to move from scene to scene easily without questioning how she got from one place to the next. Carroll himself was interested in dreaming, writing in his diary his thoughts on the experience of it and how it relates to madness. "May we not then sometimes define insanity as an inability to distinguish which is the waking and which the sleeping life? We often dream without the least suspicion of unreality. Sleep hath its own world, and it is often as lifelike as the other." As the Cheshire Cat states, "We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad. You must be, or you wouldn't have come here." What is curious in the beginning of Alice's adventures is that it is not the White Rabbit or him talking that piques Alice's interest. Rather, it is when the rabbit actually took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket and looked at it that Alice decides to follow him. It was during the Victorian era that time became known as it is today. This was due to the railways adopting timetables and the newly required regularization of time across the whole of the country. White the Rabbit having a watch is a confusing concept to Alice is because, as a little girl, she has not yet become accustomed to the necessity of time and sees that as more of an adult idea. Another Victorian influence is that of the dormouse sleeping within a tea kettle. Children during the Victorian era would actually keep dormice as pets and put leaves and grass in tea kettles for their mice to sleep upon. Finally, "Mad as a Hatter" was a common saying during this time. The occupation of being a hatter truly led to madness, as the mercury used in curing felt was a common cause of mercury poisoning. Hatters would experience seizures called the Hatter's shakes, and more advanced stages of the poisoning could lead to more psychotic symptoms, including hallucinations. Carroll was a close friend of the art critic John Ruskin, as they were both professors at Oxford. He took inspiration from Lord Byron and his poem The Dream, as quoted in the aforementioned diary entry. The White Knight's Song in Looking Glass is a parody on William Wordsworth's poem Resolution and Independence.
Aha! Just as I suspected.
She's nothing but a common mobile vulgaris.
Oh, no!
A common what?
To put it bluntly, a weed.
I'm not a weed.
Well, you wouldn't.
And the well-known flower scene from the books and movies was inspired in a play on Alfred Tennyson's Maud and the song Come Into the Garden, Maud. The impact of Alice has reached across many fields, from psychology and physics to entertainment and academia. Although the real Alice eventually grew up, the Alice that the world has come to know will always be that young 7-year-old girl who fell down the rabbit hole.